and welcome to the Raising Risk-Free Teens podcast. I'm your host, Cheryl LaBelle. In this risky world we live in today, we want to equip parents to help their teens avoid unnecessary risk. We'll touch on hot topics of the current culture. We'll talk about sexual risk avoidance and any other important information to keep you informed as a parent. All of our topics are rooted in science, facts, and medical accuracy, not opinion. Thanks for listening and hope you enjoy the podcast. Today, my guest is Taylor Schmidt. She is one of the community educators with Clarity, and she specializes in sexual risk avoidance education. She enjoys speaking to 6th and 8th grade students about making healthy, holistic life choices. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm glad to be here.
Good. We're glad to have you too. So today we're going to talk about teen dating violence in the digital world. The CDC has reported that violence among teens is one of the 6 leading causes of death and injury. So this would include peer-to-peer bullying, but we're also going to focus on dating violence. It's likely happening more than we know because teens are afraid to report it. We may be looking for physical signs of abuse like black eyes, but it actually begins in a more manipulative and controlling way before it gets physically violent. I just read a quote from the Administration for Children and Families that said, among teens and young adults, 1 in 3 U.S. teens will experience physical, sexual, or emotional abuse from someone they're in a relationship with before becoming adults. And nearly half of U.S. college women report experiencing violent or abusive dating behaviors. Those are really high statistics and really unfortunate. It would be great if we could intervene in some way. So maybe by talking with parents, we can help them in their interactions with their children to either identify it or maybe prevent it from escalating that. So I think for parents today, it's challenging to understand what teen dating violence looks like in the digital world, because our experience of dating has completely changed from back in the day. So let's see, when I first started getting into relationships like junior high and high school, that was in the early 90s to the mid 90s. And I know for us, man, we went to the ice skating rink, we went to the mall, we walked around. You had to have courage to call your friends or the person you liked and actually speak to their parent to ask if you could talk to the person. Our kids today don't have to deal with any of that. We don't even have a landline in my house. So for my children, I get to meet the people in their lives after they've already started a relationship with them. So that was back in the early 90s. Now I'm a little bit older than you. So what was dating like for you?
Yeah, it was kind of a mix of what you're describing as your experience and what I'm seeing and hearing about as an experience for our teens today. It was still a lot of you met this person in real life, and you got to know them by lightly stalking their Facebook page and just figuring out what they post and seeing if you have mutual friends. And we mixed CDs and shared Spotify playlists, and we would go out to movies, hang around the mall, all kinds of things in that sense. But you're right, it has really changed and gotten a lot more complicated in the digital era.
Yes, I have 3 teenagers at home, and the way that they interact, it's a little bit like what you shared, but very much more in the digital world on their phones. There's a whole lot more FaceTiming, which is interesting. Like my kids come walking into the kitchen and I think, who are you talking to? And I come in to start asking a question, and next thing I know, their friend is looking at me on their phone, which catches me by surprise. Even with streaming of services now to watch a movie together, you don't even have to share the same space. You can just link up and send it, and you're watching, on Hulu or Disney or whatever, you're watching a movie together. So you kind of miss out on certain relational development opportunities and getting to know each other, but I guess it just looks a little bit different now. Let's look a little bit at that with the digital world for teenagers today. What does that look like for them?
It's a very different world, and depending on your tech savvy and you're common sense savvy, you still have to have street smarts online. It can be either really dangerous or really smooth, but most of the time it can just be a space where things get even more complicated because of that disconnect from being in that face-to-face realm where you can see what effect you're having on somebody through your words and what you're saying and using your tone of voice to maybe you are FaceTiming or maybe you're direct messaging through a social media app and you might miss some of those cues. 97% of our teenagers report being online, and of those teenagers, most of them are saying that they are almost constantly or at least several times a day. This is a huge deal for our teenagers. Taking away their phone can probably feel a lot like killing a small part of them because they can't connect with their friends. They don't have those in-life skills like you were talking about of just going out and seeing someone or figuring out where to go. They always have to make sure, like, check the reviews online and use their maps even to get somewhere. There's a lot that our teens are facing online. Many teens have multiple social media accounts across multiple platforms, and this is their primary way of socializing with their peers. It leads to a lot of FOMO, or fear of missing out, and it's often seen as trendy, or there are trends online that you can be doing with your friends. And if you're missing that, then maybe you're not cool, or people are not going to see you as a great person to be around. The desire for likes and follows can lead to decreased discernment of who is allowed to be your friend online. Remember back in my day, if I didn't know them in person, they weren't allowed to be my friend on social media accounts. And nowadays, wanting to get follows, wanting people to like your things, it doesn't matter who asks to follow or who is liking your stuff as long as you have those top numbers. And teens often report feeling that it's important for their significant other to like and interact with their posts and pictures. And if there's not that side of interaction in a romantic relationship, that's an indicator to that teen that something is wrong. Anything and everything is shared on social media. There's what you ate for the day, where you're going for the weekend, and what your plans are, and who maybe somebody you think might like somebody else. There's all kinds of drama and gossip that can happen on the online space that used to just happen person to person.
Yeah, you can definitely learn a lot about a person looking at their interests and the things that they post or what they share. And it's interesting to me, too, the way that they share their relationship status. For us back in the day, it was holding hands or meeting at the locker or, that kind of public display of affection that alerted people to know you're in a relationship. But now it's all being posted online and through their social media accounts. And it's interesting listening to my children talk about how that changes to how their friends' behaviors will change too. Two of my kids are really good about being intentional with more in-person activities, but my youngest son, he seems to be more of a product of the culture. And yeah, as soon as he gets a girlfriend, it's like you can't separate them because they're always on the phone and they're always doing things together, and it changes his interactions and all that. So I guess instead of it being in person, we're just seeing that transfer over to their phones, especially. Some of them might have iPads and things of that nature, but it really is all in their pocket. With kids dating in this digital world and their relationships playing out that way, how does the violence happen?
That is an excellent question. Just like with in-person, the real-world dating violence, it happens slowly and it's hidden as romantic and socially normalized as romantic, those early behaviors, which makes it difficult to catch what is an unhealthy pattern of that relationship. So for example, it might be cute that a couple of times when you don't respond immediately to your significant other via text, they're like, hey, you didn't respond to me. Like, I miss you. I want to talk to you. But if that's going to continue and that becomes a pattern, that is a major red flag of monitoring and controlling and wanting to know where you are, or sharing your location on your phones together so you guys know where you guys are, and that way maybe they'll stop by and say hi, or maybe send you a Cash App gift or anything like that. Knowing where you are Again, seems cute at the beginning. Like, yeah, we want to do everything together. I want to know everything about you. And it can turn into something where they want to control where you are. They can see who your friends are and who you talk to on social media platforms. And that can turn into, well, I don't want you talking to that guy, or I don't want you talking to her, or they're turning you against me, or and it can, again, it starts off very sweet and feeling very romantic, and it's hard to take those rose-colored glasses off to see the red flags underneath. There are 1 in 4 teenagers who report experiencing digital dating violence. It is very prevalent, and it's been made super easy by being online. Recently, there's been an effect that's called online disinhibition, which is a perceived distance from people that you may be interacting with online. It leads to people saying and doing things they may not do in person. I talk about this with our 6th graders. If they have that distance, they are not seeing the devastation that a friend may have if they're posting a mean comment. And it becomes really easy to justify cyberbullying and dating violence when you can say, oh, they know I was just joking, or I was just commenting on the thread that was already there, or everybody else was saying that, or I didn't actually mean for them to see that. It can be really easy to justify being unkind on the internet. There's also a level of freedom on the internet. A lot of parents don't understand parental controls and how to utilize them best, and very many of the social media platforms have little to no accountability for what can be posted, what can be said, and oftentimes, even if you do report something, it takes them a very long time to take it down, or they refuse to take down what is being reported. So if there's any kind of bullying, any kind of violent or threatening messages, sexually explicit pictures or messages, though there's no guarantee that there is anybody monitoring or taking those things down.
Yeah, there are certainly a lot of freedoms that are out there with the social media platforms. And I think even just entrusting our children with their cell phones, I've heard some stories that my daughter has shared with me. She's in high school now, but when she was in middle school, she had a friend in 8th grade who would often complain about her boyfriend. They weren't in the same, they didn't go to the same school. So it was kind of like a distance relationship, but somehow she had met him and had some kind of a relationship with him before this. But through the phone, every morning he would have to approve what she wore to school. And I remember my daughter telling me that one day her friend came and she was very upset because her boyfriend didn't like the outfit that she had put on. And she was wearing leggings and her shirt was not long enough to cover below her waist. And so he was very upset about that and said she had to change it. She chose not to change it and came to school. But even though she was exerting her own dominance, making her own choices, he was still affecting her because she was upset and distraught throughout the day. More recently, my daughter and I have a good relationship. So she tells me these things and I appreciate it because it gives me more insight to that world. She has another friend who, this will sound like a convoluted story, but her friend was friends with another girl at a different school. Well, that girl's partner reached out to the friend and said, "Why are you liking my girlfriend's posts?" Now, her friend was a swimmer. So here she is liking posts of her friend in a swimsuit. Not that we should be posting pictures of ourselves in a swimsuit, but she was a swimmer and it was more related to competitions she had been in. But this friend of my daughter's was kind of being attacked about why are you pursuing my girlfriend? She's mine and you shouldn't be looking at her. And I've never heard her mention your name before. And the question comes into play, how did she even get this friend's phone number to reach out to her? So when my daughter told me that, I said, this sounds like very controlling behavior. And I think that's what we see. Like you said, it sounds like little love tokens, like share your password with me. You don't really trust me if you don't share your passwords with me or share your location with me. And what seems innocent in the beginning or caring and affectionate, truly does grow into more manipulative, controlling, not just, it's emotionally and it's psychological. And there's research out there that shows a direct correlation to those who do this digitally. It will turn into a physical violence. Like it does lead to that. So that practice of this early on grows into something more. And then there's that risk of those who are in violent relationships. A lot of times we like to think the easy out is, well, just leave. But we know from a lot of stories and experiences that that's difficult and challenging to do. They can't just walk away. They want to very desperately, but they can't without having that help and support of family and friends to get out of it. And then it's almost like you have to rewire your brain to not be comfortable in those kinds of relationships so that you don't seek them out, but instead identify the negative behaviors as a red flag and then run away. So it's really hard. It's complicated. And I think as parents, because we don't get that insight to our children's lives, having their cell phones, it's such a private life and intimate thing that they can do separate from us in their bedrooms, or even if you're in the same room, you don't see what they're typing. It's hard as a parent to intervene. And how do I help my child not get caught up in a relationship like that? Or how do I help my child identify that they are in an unhealthy relationship? Where do we go from there? So you've shared a lot about the opportunities that they have. You shared some statistics, like 1 in 4 experiences this. So it sounds like it's pretty prevalent. And it's happening because this is just the world that our kids live in now. It's one more layer to that face-to-face interaction. What are the implications of this? That, I mentioned a little bit, there's this direct correlation to behaviors and how you act now. That can lead to, it can escalate to more violence. Or if teens are in these relationships, they might find that they continue to enter into relationships like that. But what else can it mean for them in their future?
Honestly, it can mean mental health issues. It can mean depression and anxiety, and can lead to suicidal thoughts, sometimes homicidal thoughts. The CDC lists accidents, homicide, and suicide as the leading causes of death for teenagers in the United States. Hurt people is something that we say in our 8th grade curriculum sometimes, and so it can really continue the spread of abuse and violence. It can be difficult, as you're saying, to get out of that kind of relationship, and then sets that pattern and habitual behavior to want to seek out those kinds of relationships. But also it could lead to seeking revenge or retribution, or becoming bitter. Unhealthy relationships are often normalized in our media, and so it can take a very long time for any of it to ring as something that's violent or unhealthy and controlling. A lot of implications of this kind of behavior really affects our world, and we can see that in the rise in STDs and STIs in our young people. We can see that in the rise of suicides and mental illness in our young people as well. It's very complicated out there, and with media and the internets being so open and not monitored and not restricted, it can be very dangerous.
Okay, so let me set the stage. I'm a mom. I have 3 teenagers, and I probably haven't been as restrictive on my cell phone rules as I could have to better protect my children. So they're in relationships. What should I be looking for to identify or alert me that they might be in an unhealthy or even violent relationship?
Well, first of all, you are a good parent, and anybody listening, I'm sure you are a good parent, because listening to this indicates that you want what's best for your kids. You can always set in new expectations and rules with children. You have to have honest communication and conversations with them about it. And I'm not saying it's going to go smoothly or easily, but that is something, if you decide it's right for you and your family, you can do. But if you are seeing your child spending all of their time almost obsessively talking about or hanging out with or being digitally active with another person, that can be an indication. If they are showing that they are willing to sacrifice things that they used to enjoy, or relationships of friendships that they used to have fun being with, and instead they're sacrificing those things constantly to be with this other person, that is an indication. Wanting to be super private, like getting anxious and mad even when you ask them maybe to just put their phone down for a conversation, or you ask to look at their phone to see a picture that they're trying to show you. That can be an indicator that there's something going on. Increased anxiety and depression symptoms. So being sad, not eating as much, not getting outside when they normally would do something like that. Anything that's out of the ordinary for their behavior, and then using your parental discernment, what might be out of the ordinary for a teenager, because we all know they do weird things on the regular basis anyway. If they normally would talk with you, or something has changed in their relationship, or they are moodier than normal, or you just kind of pick up on little things that don't seem right. Maybe they're talking with you about this relationship and they're saying, oh yeah, I shared my phone pin with him, or oh yeah, he knows everything, like I sent him a picture of myself this morning and he really liked what I was wearing. Those little things can, if they continue to come up in those conversations, can be indications that your teen might still be in that honeymoon phase, but it might not be the best or healthiest relationship for them.
Okay. All right. So if I see some of these unlikely characteristics, out of the normal behaviors or changes in mood, look for those kinds of things. So if I see them and I want to start a conversation with my child, and I can do this because it comes from a place of love, to reach out and say, hey, what's going on? Or tell me a little bit more about your relationship. How do I empower my teenagers with more protective factors that they can either get out of the situation themselves, or how can I show them that I'm not accusing them of being in an unhealthy relationship, but that I'm being a support person to love them through it and a resource when they're ready for that?
Absolutely. My first thing is just be honest about your concerns and observations. And in saying that, make sure that you're talking in a way where you're talking about the behaviors that you see this unhealthy person doing and not the person themselves. So, for example, oh, your boyfriend approves your pictures every day. That seems very controlling. Is that something he normally does? What do you think about that? So, kind of turning it on to what they're thinking and what their experiences are. Ask more questions and listen more than you find yourself talking. And I know it's hard, but do not give advice unless your teen specifically asks for it. You want to let them know that you are there for them, and even if you're disagreeing with some of their choices that they're making, that you are going to stick by them. Because if they continue to make those choices and continue to stay in that relationship and you disagree and they feel like they've cut ties with you, it'll be that much harder for them to come to you if they ever want to get out and need your support and help then. Normalize talking about social media and relationships with your teen. Don't let this become okay, I'm just gonna sit you down and talk with you. Like, normalize, like, I'm going to ask you about your social media interactions. Tell me what you think about Taylor Swift and her NFL boyfriend. If you take the effort to get to know what they're experiencing and having positive interactions with in their social media lives, they're more likely to share with you some of those unpleasant or dangerous experiences they might be having online. Know the social media that they're using. Know what apps that they're on. Figure out yourself how to use those things. Understand, do some research behind that so you can, maybe if you're super concerned or there's something illegal going on, you can put parental controls on, or you can talk with them about, hey, I saw on the news today that Elon Musk did something crazy with whatever he's doing. So tell me, how do you feel about how that's affecting your digital life? It also helps if you have a regular time to talk with them, like undivided attention, like dinner time or doing chores together or taking a walk around the block. I remember in my life, my dad, he asked me about a book I was reading when we were raking leaves. And at first I thought he was just, asking to check it off his list. And he actually asked me more questions and was open and curious, and that opened me up and we talked a lot more. And that's a great memory that I have. If they know that they have a place where there's an undivided attention that you give to them, they are more likely to come to you in a serious time of need. Some ways that you can empower your teens if you don't suspect that they're in this situation, but you think maybe it could be something that happens in their lives. First, I just encourage you to build their self-confidence and their self-worth as much as possible, because we know, scientifically speaking, if you believe that you are worthwhile and you have value, you are less likely to search for value and worthiness in another person. And encourage them to maintain and keep their friends and hobbies outside of dating relationships. Having a lot of things to do, not being constantly obsessed with that person, can be a real asset to your children and your teenagers. Go ahead and practice refusal skills and assertive language with them. We use this formula in our classes at Clarity for our students, and it's I feel blank when you blank, please blank. For example, what I use with our sixth graders is I feel uncomfortable when you share pornography with me. Can we please watch a different movie? Or please stop. Or the idea is to tell them how you're feeling, tell them what's making you feel that way specifically, and then change the direction of the conversation, or just ask them to straight up not discontinue whatever they're doing to make you uncomfortable. And that no's are normal. And if you practice these with your kids and help them set those boundaries and say those things in small ways with little things, then they are more likely to feel confident using those when bigger things are happening in a relationship or across their life in any situation.
That's really good. The suggestions that you gave, and encouraging them, building up their self-confidence, and for them to see their value. I think that our culture and our society is really looking for our value in other people and other things. And it's not helping our young people find that value within themselves. And so if you're looking for someone else to fill that void, it's easy to open that door for someone, a partner. And then you're also giving them the opportunity to, if they make you feel so special, but then start making demands, well, you don't want to disappoint. And so it builds. And as we've talked about some of these violent behaviors, not just the controlling and the manipulation, I think when we worry about teen dating violence, we think of the physical, pushing around, punching or hurting, but it escalates then sexually too. And in that digital world, it can be, well, send me a picture, or you don't really love me. And then you can start getting into sextortion and sexting. And, once that picture is put out there, it can't be taken back. You lose that control. And maybe you think you're in this loving relationship now, but when you break up, that ex or that ex's friend is going to take that picture and then can ruin your child's life with it. So having those conversations too about what boundaries, encouraging your children, well, what's important to you? Is especially when my daughter tells me stories about friends, I usually don't have to ask, how does that make you feel? Because she's very quick to share with me how that makes her feel. And I appreciate that, but I do have the opportunity to talk through some of those emotions to identify them. Well, you feel this way because that's such a violation of your privacy, or is that something you think you would ever do? Or how can you help your friend? To identify some of these red flags. I think it's so important to empower our young people to recognize the red flags and the green flags of healthy and unhealthy relationships, not only for themselves, but for their friends too. And I also like to encourage, if any of our students recognize a red flag in their behavior, you don't have to be that way. You can make a choice. If you can step back and see that your behavior is not healthy or helping the people around you, now is a good time to talk to an adult or someone that you trust about getting some therapy or getting some better direction, because it's a behavior and it's an unhealthy behavior. And it's not going to serve them well. If someone is a violent person, then that's probably not going to lead to a good successful future. And as parents, we want our children to be successful. So I know that when I'm watching my children, not just are they victims, but also wanting to make sure that they're making healthy choices in how they treat the people around them. And I like to try and invite those friends that they're connecting with digitally into our real lives. And sometimes it's an inconvenience because our lives are very busy. But I have on several occasions invited, a girlfriend or a boyfriend to come over for dinner or a movie night, or why don't we go out to eat or at a sports activity, whatever it is, trying to find those school opportunities that are naturally happening to engage and meet them. And you do learn a lot about the other person if they are comfortable talking to adults, if they make eye contact. And it gives a little insight to my children too. Who are you interested in, and why are those characteristics appealing to you? Not that I challenge that. I think we have to be careful there too, because I have heard a child can come to us and say something, and then we're quick to not believe them or to dismiss them or to minimize what it is that they've said. And really, we need to give them that attention and ask more questions, those open-ended questions that aren't accusatory. Now, my son is very quick to jump to conclusions, and so I usually have to use more words to say, I'm not judging you, or I'm not assuming the worst. Just help me understand. I've never heard you talk about this person. Tell me a little bit more about them. Where did you meet them? Who are they? I want to know them, because if you like them, then they must have value. So help me find that value in them too. So always challenging to navigate those waters. And as our children mature, I think they get better at communicating too. But I would hate for there to be a child out there who is in a relationship that's hurting them, and a parent to not, maybe you see that things are changed, something's different, but you don't know what it is. You don't know how to identify it. So definitely encouraging to ask those questions and just show them that they're loved. Well, thank you for all of this wonderful information, and hopefully it will help parents as we navigate those waters with our children or with other children that we're close to. Maybe they're not ours, but other children in our lives. If we see any of those red flags, that we can be alerted to it and try to help our young people today so that they have a healthier future tomorrow. So thank you so much for today.
Thanks for having me, Cheryl.
Hey, thanks for listening. This podcast is brought to you by Clarity of Central Indiana. We hope you enjoyed today's topic. Be sure to leave us a review and share with your friends. You can find any links mentioned in the episode notes. Always remember that you have value, you have worth, you matter.